Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into a deep exploration of a really classic text, Think and Grow Rich, the original version restored and revised.
Yeah, it's quite the read. This material really offers a framework for understanding success, not just, financially, but for achieving pretty much any definite goal you set your mind to.
Hmm.
It's all built on these principles. The author sort of distilled from studying some incredibly successful people of his time.
Right. And our mission here for this deep dive is basically to pull out some of the core ideas from these pages. We want to see what insights they hold for you, however you happen to define success or whatever you're aiming for.
Exactly. We'll be looking at, well, quite a range. Everything from the nature of real education, beyond just school, to the power of these intangible forces, things like desire and faith,
Okay.
and then how to build actual concrete plans, navigate relationships, and also tackle that really critical inner landscape, your mind, your fears, maybe even tapping into intuition.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this. And maybe we should start with that point that might feel a little counterintuitive today, this idea that formal schooling isn't necessarily the be all and end all for true education or success.
Absolutely. The material brings up people like John Wanamaker, the department store guy,
Mm-hmm.
described as basically scooping up education like a steam train taking on water while running.
Ah, yeah. Or Henry Ford, who famously didn't even finish high school.
Right.
It's not saying formal education is bad, obviously, but it argues for a deeper meaning of education. It actually traces the word back to Latin, educo, which means something like to draw out or develop from within.
That's a really key shift in perspective, isn't it? It's about developing what's already inside you, your potential.
Hmm.
And the text points out what it calls a missing link in a lot of educational institutions. They often don't teach how to organize and actually use the knowledge once you've got it.
Which does make you think about that line. Why is free public education sometimes undervalued? The book sort of suggests that people tend to only really appreciate things that, well, have a price tag.
Right. And contrast that with self-study or developing specialized knowledge, on your own time. The material says employers often really value employees who use their spare time, even slack time, for professional development.
Because it signals initiative, right? A forward-thinking mindset. It shows ambition, not just doing something because you have to. It makes you think about your own path. Where did your most valuable learning really happen? Was it always in a classroom?
hmm And moving from that external stuff like knowledge to something much more internal, the text places huge emphasis on intangible forces, things you can't really touch, like initiative, faith, and just having that burning desire to win.
The story that always sticks with me here is Mr. Darby.
Ah, yes, the 3 feet from gold guy. Quit digging his mind literally just before hitting the jackpot. A pretty rough failure early on.
But the book uses that failure brilliantly as a setup. Years later, he's selling insurance, facing rejection constantly. But every time someone said no, he didn't just give up. He remembered being 3 feet from gold.
Exactly. And that memory, that feeling, it fueled his persistence. The insight here is that this really intense desire, kind of born from that past failure, could be transmuted, turned into the driving force for succeeding somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, and that connects right into a core idea. That desire, when it's backed by real, genuine faith, is powerful enough to lift people from basically nowhere or help stage these incredible comebacks after failure.
Yes, and it goes even deeper. The text suggests that any single dominant thought or idea or purpose, if you hold it consistently in your mind, it starts to attract related thoughts, related circumstances. It builds its own momentum, becoming your main motivator.
So, okay, if you want to plant that powerful thought or aim in your mind, how does the book say you should do it? Repetition seems key.
Precisely. It recommends actually writing down your definite chief aim, your main goal, memorizing it, and then repeating it out loud every day. The whole idea is to bypass your conscious doubts and plant it straight into your subconscious. Let those positive vibrations or just that powerful focus build up.
It's a technique really aimed at building self-belief, turning hesitation into action. And the examples of faith in action are pretty striking.
Like that patient who survived incredibly complex surgery against the odds, simply because he absolutely refused to accept he might die. His sheer desire, his faith in surviving, it seemed to override everything.
Or looking at history, Napoleon, his legendary ability to inspire his troops to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. The book links that directly to his unwavering faith in himself and his cause. These aren't just abstract concepts, they're presented as forces with real, tangible effects.
So you got this intense desire is fueled by faith, but the book is very, very clear. Just wishing for success That's not enough.
Definitely not. It makes a really sharp distinction there. You need that burning desire, almost an obsession. Then you need to figure out concrete, definite ways to achieve it and back those plans with persistence that just refuses to accept failure. Like failure isn't even an option in your mind.
That persistence part is absolutely critical. And the starting point for any real action, according to this material, is definiteness of purpose, having a super clear, specific target.
The story of Dr. Frank Gonzalez really shows this well. He needed $1 million, a huge sum back then, to build a college. Didn't have it. But he had this burning desire, a definite plan, and he announced it all publicly in a sermon, painting this vivid picture.
And boom, within days, a wealthy person in the audience basically wrote him a check for the whole amount. The book connects this same principle to figures like Asa Candler, the Coca-Cola guy. The core message really seems to be that ideas, even huge ones, can be turned into cash, into reality through that power couple. Definite purpose plus definite plans.
Okay, so having a definite purpose is step one. How do you actually build the plans to get there? What's the practical advice?
Well, the book lays out a pretty clear approach. First step, ally yourself with a group. People whose combined knowledge and skills can help you create and execute your plans. This is what it calls the mastermind principle.
And it really hammers home the importance of maintaining absolute perfect harmony within that group. It says without harmony, the whole principle just doesn't work right.
You're leveraging the combined experience, education, natural talent, imagination of all these different minds. The book argues that, great fortunes, they're rarely built alone. It takes cooperation.
And these plans aren't like set in stone, right? The material advises having your mastermind group review and approve them, but what if the first plan, well, what if it fails?
That's where persistence comes roaring back.
Yeah.
You don't give up on the goal, you just replace the failing plan with a new one. And if that one doesn't work, make another. Keep going until you find a plan that actually delivers. The book points out that this is where most people fall down. They lack the persistence to keep creating new plans when the first one stumbles.
So it's not just sticking stubbornly to a bad plan, but persistently creating effective ones. And this whole approach isn't just for business or making money, is it? It applies much wider, like marketing yourself, leading people.
Exactly. The text actually outlines some key leadership qualities it sees as essential for success.
Things like having a pleasing personality, something that naturally earns respect.
Yeah, and having sympathy and understanding, for the people you lead, the problems they face. Being on top of the details yourself, sure, but also knowing how and when to delegate effectively.
And this one's critical. A willingness to take full responsibility. A real leader, it says, sees the mistakes of their team as their own failures.
The book also talks about a shift it saw happening in the business world back then, moving away from methods based just on force and fear towards ones built more on faith and cooperation.
Right. It mentions the decline of the old go-getter being replaced by the go-giver, which implies this partnership between employers and employees where they also think about the needs and rights of, like, a third party, the public they serve.
It's a perspective that values contribution and service, not just profit. And speaking of value, the book has this kind of provocative idea for figuring out the worth of your own skills, your brains, when you're marketing your personal services.
Oh, yeah, the calculation.
Right.
It suggests you can estimate your value by taking your annual income and multiplying it by, what was it, 16.667? Based on the idea your income is like 6% interest on your total capital value?
Essentially, yeah. Your competent mind is framed as this really valuable, non-depreciating asset. And then there's that bold suggestion for getting a job. Offer to work on probation, without pay, but only if you are absolutely sure you're qualified.
The logic being, I guess, if you're truly confident you can add value, showing it risk-free to the employer is the ultimate sales pitch.
Okay, let's maybe shift gears now to the internal world, specifically the mind. The book puts huge importance on regular self-analysis.
Like taking inventory, but for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Framed as crucial for tracking progress, identifying strengths, but also weaknesses, honestly.
Exactly. It even gives you questions to guide this. Things like, did I make decisions promptly? Did I let fears slow me down? Was I really open-minded? Have I improved my ability to serve others? Was I, intemperate in any habits? Did I waste energy? Show egotism? Were my opinions based on facts or just guesswork? Did I budget my time, my money, my income properly?
Asking those kinds of questions regularly, yeah, it gives you a pretty clear picture of where you stand relative to your goals. And the book points out a major vulnerability. leaving your mind wide open to negative influences from other people.
It actually calls this the devil's workshop, framing that susceptibility to negative vibes as potentially even more damaging than the specific fears it lists. People who achieve big things, it says, actively guard themselves against that external negativity.
And what are some of those core fears the book highlights?
Well, there's the fear of poverty, which it argues leaves no room for riches and, really crystallized during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And the fear of criticism that one can totally paralyze you, stop you from making or acting on plans. And it often works subconsciously.
The example they use is so relatable. The woman afraid to wear an old hat because she fears being laughed at shows how deep that fear of judgment runs, even over small things.
Then there's the fear of ill health, which the book links strongly to negative thoughts, worry, fear itself, disappointment, and the fear of death, which it partly connects to certain religious teachings that maybe prey on uncertainty about what comes next.
It's really clear how these internal roadblocks can just hold you back massively.
And the book reminds us the mind is basically a creature of habit. It gets fed by the thoughts we allow to dominate it. But, and this is crucial, it states you can use your willpower to actively cultivate positive emotions and push out the negative ones.
Which brings us back to that idea of transmutation again.
Yes, it pops up again. The concept is about deliberately changing the nature of your thoughts and emotions, transmuting negative feelings into positive ones by consciously redirecting your focus. It also controversially discusses transmuting sex energy, which it sees as this powerful life force, into focused enthusiasm for your work, for sales, for influence. Love is also mentioned for its positive effects.
And finally, the book touches on something pretty fascinating, the sixth sense.
Yeah, this is presented as something, well, beyond normal understanding, almost like a bridge between your finite mind and what it calls infinite intelligence, however you interpret that phrase. It's described as a mix of the mental and the spirit.
And like a muscle, right?
Yeah.
Developed through use, often through quiet reflection, meditation, and by actually applying all the other principles we've talked about.
The idea is that this sixth sense can act a bit like a guardian angel, warning you of dangers you might otherwise miss and highlighting opportunities right when they appear. It's presented as this higher form of intuition that becomes available when you master your mind.
So after digging through all these principles, desire, faith, planning, persistence, beating fear, harnessing intuition, what is the ultimate secret the book is supposedly built around?
Well, the book is actually quite upfront about it. The secret isn't some magic spell or hidden shortcut. It's really about understanding and then applying these timeless natural laws. And they're available to absolutely anyone who has the faith and the courage to actually use them.
So it's about taking the knowledge and doing something with it. The book even observes that lots of people read about these principles, but they fail at the crucial step, taking the necessary definite actions.
Exactly. The information's out there, but mastering yourself and consistently applying these principles day in, day out, that's where the real work and the real potential lies.
We've certainly covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've looked at how this source defines education, the sheer power of your inner drive, why collaboration and planning are so vital, the critical task of facing down your fears, and even the potential to tap into something like intuition, that sixth sense.
The whole framework, it's a profound challenge, isn't it? And an encouragement directly to you, the listener, to examine yourself honestly and to deliberately try applying these principles in your own life.
Yeah, it leaves us with this really powerful assertion that you have the ability to consciously influence your own subconscious mind. And through that, potentially gain cooperation from forces maybe beyond your immediate conscious grasp.
Which ultimately brings us right back to that core question the material poses. Could mastering your own thoughts, applying these principles with that unwavering persistence and faith, could that be the key to becoming, as the source puts it, the master of your fate, the captain of your soul?
Definitely something to mull over until our next deep dive.